I don't know if the board members read this, but in Mr. Seaton's own words, that's nice. I could do something with that. That's what Mr. Seaton commented to a deputy at the Independence Bowl when a flashlight was shown on Caitlin during the altercation with her boyfriend and him being taken away by the police. And that's exactly what he did that we have heard nothing about. This was a gross abuse of office, whether it was consensual or not consensual. This man was one of our highest city officials. He had a job to do at the Independence Bowl. But when he said he was going to do something with that, he meant it. And that was Caitlin Winstel, the barely 18-year-old intoxicated human being from another state who was here, unfamiliar with her surroundings, no one that she knew around. And that's what he did. He swooped her up like a hawk. I know we hear the word predator in our business a lot, but it's never been more fitting than in this instance.
A Caddo Parish judge sentenced Rick Seaton to 15 years in prison for forcible rape and 3 years for abuse of office. KSLA News 12's Aaron Stevenson was in court as Seaton made his final plea for mercy. And Aaron, what did he have to say?
Well, Dominique, Seaton said he takes responsibilities for his actions and is sorry for hurting his family. Seaton sounded remorseful as he said, "I have embarrassed myself, my family, and my city. For that, I am truly sorry." Seaton was sentenced to a total of 18 years, 3 of which he won't be eligible for parole. Because he'll be serving his sentences of 15 and 3 years concurrently, or at the same time, he'll be done with his sentence in 15 years. A judge convicted Seaton in January of a young girl after the 2010 Independence Bowl. Seaton on the couch in Mayor Glover's office.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of this high-ranking official who took advantage of his place of power within Louisiana to do this to this girl. Now, this parole hearing is full of twists and turns. We have mic drops by the victim's mother. We have mic drops by all of the parole board members. And of course, we have it by the representative for the assistant district attorney's office. Now, this case comes with many twists and turns, and Richard has all the research, which I'll go through with you to clear anything up that you might have at the end of this hearing.
All right. Well, good morning to each of y'all and to Rick Seaton. This is your day to talk to us. And just so that you'll know, Pete Freeman is on my right, and Carolyn Stapleton is on my left. And of course, you know Steve Prater. I'm the chairman today. And so we'll go in. The way we're going to conduct this hearing is that we're going to allow you, Rick, to tell us just exactly why we should consider a parole for you. Then we will hear from the warden as far as what kind of an inmate that you have been. We will then go into 2 people that wish to speak, and they are both your sons that wish to speak on your behalf. And then we will move into opposition. And we will have Kimberly Schoolcraft, the victim's mother, and Leona Fitzgerald, who is with the Caddo DA's office. They will speak in opposition. Then we will take care of the questioning, and this is Carolyn Stapleton's. She'll be the primary questioner on this, and then we will vote, and you'll immediately know what the decision is today. So, having said all that, we'll move directly to you, Mr. Seaton, and tell us exactly why we should consider paroling you today.
Thank you, sir. I'm a minimum custody inmate. I had 0 write-ups, never had a write-up in prison. I've served 85% of my sentence. I've taken every class that I could take. I've taught several classes here to help others. I have an approved residence plan. I have an interstate compact that's been approved to another state. I still have a few years left to be productive, and I look forward to being a productive member of society. I've been blessed with family and friends that have supported me in this past 13, 14 years, and I look forward to returning the favor to them and helping to support them in their time. I've grown a lot in the last 13, 14 years. I'm a more patient person. I think I'm a better man than I was. I've helped a lot of people and taught a lot, and I look forward to continuing that growth. and I ask you for your vote yes.
Okay, well, we appreciate that statement from you, and we will immediately go to we've heard. Okay, Warden, would you tell us what kind of an inmate that Mr. Seaton's been?
Yes, sir. As he said, he's been in here since 2014. He's been in general population ever since. He was made trustee in 2021. And he's worked in several different jobs. He's currently working in the education department as an academic tutor, and he's our editor for our inmate magazine that was just started back in 2023. He's completed multiple programs. He's completed the sex offender program and the reentry program. As he said, his interstate compact has been approved, and he does have an employment plan. He's doing well here. He hasn't had any issues here since he's been here at David Wade disciplinary, and like I said, he's worked in multiple capacities, so we don't have any issues.
Okay, all right, appreciate that. And now I believe we will go to those speaking in favor. First one will be Luke Seaton, who is the son. Luke, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's your turn. Go ahead, sir. And please limit your remarks to, somewhere 3 to 5 minutes. You have 10 minutes total for people in favor of, so that's how long you'll have.
Yes, sir. Good morning, members of the Parole Board. I'm Rick's oldest son, and I'm here today to express my hope to support him in my home here in Michigan, should he be granted parole. Over the past several years, my dad and I have spoken on the phone almost every night, often multiple calls a night. And during these conversations, we worked on the New York Times crossword puzzles together, like Wordle and the crossword, and talk about life. But today I wanted to highlight one form of growth that you can't see in the courses that he's taken and certificates he's completed in his incarceration. Since his incarceration, my dad has read more books than many of us might have the chance to read in a lifetime. And in one particular phone call, he was telling me about all the romance novels that he's read and how they all have the same story and how miscommunications are the only thing that can create conflict and move the plot along. And he came to the realization, he told me, I think I've realized that the key to relationships is good communication. And for someone in their 50s to come to that conclusion shows openness and humility and potential for growth. I believe that my dad does have a lot more growing to do, and parole would be the best opportunity for that. He has not yet had the opportunity to prove how some of his values and expectations has changed over the past several years. I plan to support him financially, mentally, emotionally as he reintegrates into society, and to connect him with potential employers. I own a house here in Michigan with a dedicated bedroom for him. I've already met with his assigned parole agent through his approved interstate compact, and we have reentry resources in the city of Lansing for therapy, support groups, and employment. And I want to thank you for your time and for considering my dad's case. I truly believe he has made the most of his time while he has been in prison, and that if granted parole, he will become the best version of himself.
Okay, Luke, thank you, sir, very much. We'll hear from Isaac now.
Alrighty, I just wanted to thank y'all for hearing me today. I just wanted to say that I love my dad. I'm ready for him to be released, and that I'm willing to help and support him in any way that I can. And over the past years, over the multiple phone calls we've had, I've noticed his growth and his sense of purpose. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Isaac, for that. And Rick, you're lucky to have two sons like that, and I can applaud you boys for the support that you've given your dad. Okay, we'll move into opposition now. We have two people. The first will be Kimberly Schoolcraft, who is the victim in this case, mother. Kimberly, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you understand me? Because my phone sometimes garbles up the communication.
Well, we're understanding you. The picture is not exactly going with your voice, but as long as we can hear you, that will be fine.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm the victim's mother, Caitlin Winstel, and she's no longer with us. I don't know if you're aware of that, but she died in 2014 of a fatal car accident. When this situation happened, well, first of all, let me just say, in Rick Seaton's opening remarks, I did not once hear him say that he was sorry for his crime. I did not hear him talk about the impact to my daughter, to our family. To me, that shows no remorse. Everything that I've read online that he's written in his free Rick Seaton newsletters talks about he's still in denial. He is questioning everything, and he was found guilty. So it doesn't matter what he believes in his mind. I don't think he still has shown any remorse. He totally abused his power. He took my daughter into the mayor's office, and in his office, he has a little box of sex toys. So my daughter wasn't the first one that he's abused, and he wasn't found guilty for any. Nobody's come, to my knowledge. I don't know what's been going on because I don't even live on that side of the country, but it floors me, and it really hurts my heart that in his opening remarks, all he's done is talking about himself. He sounds like a narcissist. Yes, he's done all these programs in prison to make himself look good and has been leading and training. All of those things I'd like to see him humble himself and clean the toilets and be a janitor and not say how good he is. He has 2 sons that are still alive that he can build a life with. I don't have a daughter that can grow out of this and learn to forgive him. I'm a Christian. I have the peace now of her death, only knowing that she came to know the Lord a few weeks before she died in her car accident. And so that's the only way I can be at peace with her death. It still hurt, the hurt that she had for those 2 years that she was on this earth, and a lot of pain. Nothing can describe what a young girl goes through when she was only 18, a few weeks when he committed this act. And I know the Bible says that in Matthew 6 that we have to forgive others of their trespasses so that God will forgive us. And I think that my daughter by now would have forgiven him because she was a Christian. And I can't sit in judgment. The Bible also says how we can't sit in judgment of others. But Rick Seaton was judged for this crime. And the judge could have given him 45 years, but didn't. Allowed him to serve congruently his abuse of power. And I think he should serve that time. That's a blink of an eye in a lifetime on this earth. And if he's a Christian, he should get his life straight, learn how to be remorseful, humble himself, admit to his crime. And I have never once seen him admit to a crime. So I'm definitely opposed. I'm not bitter in my heart. I know my words sound that way, but I guess I'm just upset that he can't bring himself to humility. And if he can't, then he should not be released. He has not learned anything while he's in jail other than how to continue to gain more power so that when he's released, he can also control other people. And that's what I have. Thank you for letting me speak.
Hey, thank you, and I'm very sorry in the loss of your daughter.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I was in Louisiana.
There you go. Okay, Leon Fitzgerald is the next Yes, ma'am. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. I'm sorry, I thought I was going last.
Well, I think you are last.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm sorry. All right, can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Good morning. I'm Leone Fitzgerald. I'm the director of the Victim Assistance Program for the Caddo DA's office. And I actually worked on this case when it first came to our office and throughout the trial process. So, hi, Miss Schoolcraft. It's been a long time, but I'm glad you're on today. Well, I did expect to hear more from Mr. Seaton, but as you all know, this happened or started at our Independence Bowl, which y'all are probably familiar with. It's a big event in Shreveport around here and something that we're proud of locally. It shows our city on the national level in a positive way, but that was not the case after the events in 2011, because the takeaway that year, the news headline was top city official arrested for raping teen in mayor's office. And so, aside from the trauma that was caused to Caitlin, and his own family, he pretty much disgraced our entire city and put a black eye on a tradition that our city plans and looks forward to year round. I'm not surprised one bit that he's been a model prisoner. In fact, I would have been surprised by anything different. Many sex offenders are model prisoners. They know what they're doing. They're cunning and manipulative, and that's what they do. That's how they charm their victims and how they gain access to victims. So, of course, he conforms when he has to look good. Like Miss Schoolcraft, I was very disappointed that Caitlin was never mentioned in his remarks. No matter what his interpretation is of what happened, she was traumatized and she's deceased now. So that really, disappoints me that he couldn't throw out one obligatory comment about Caitlin in his remarks. I've also read his written statement that he submitted to the board. I've read lots of letters from his supporters that were very disheartening. I mean, you want to talk about Monday morning quarterbacking. I heard everybody blame, from the judge to the victim to everything, all the things that Caitlin did wrong. I even read some derogatory comments about Mr. Seaton's ex-wife. I don't know what in the world she has to do with any of this, other than, you could consider her a victim in this too. And it disturbs me if the board read all these things. I mean, I trust that you can see through these letters, but it was just very disappointing to read how people made all this judgment about Caitlin and her past, and they don't even know her. One man put together an outline, I suppose you could say, of referring to this event as the perfect storm and referring to Caitlin as a seductive woman, which made me laugh because she was a drunk high school senior who had been 18 years old for 18 days. I don't think she was really capable or intending to seduce anyone. She was trying to get her boyfriend out of jail. One supporter of Mr. Seaton's referred to a video that apparently none of the rest of us have seen, that he says shows Caitlin dragging Mr. Seaton to the scene of the sex act. Well, Caitlin was about 5 feet tall and probably weighed 110 or 15 pounds and was intoxicated and and Mr. Seaton is about 6'5", so I don't think she was dragging him anywhere. Everything that I read in the pre-parole, other than Caitlin's family, all makes this out to be like Mr. Seaton was the victim in this ordeal. And Mr. Seaton hasn't said or done anything to convince this office otherwise. So, you know, to mention Caitlin's supporters, other than her mom, who's already spoken, you know, Caitlin, I wish I could show y'all a picture. She was a beautiful young girl. She was a niece, a daughter, a granddaughter, a goddaughter. She could have been anybody's daughter. She was a Girl Scout growing up. Here she is. And that's just the way that I remember her. She was attending college at the time of her death. And she didn't get anything out of any of this. Nothing good. She got berated. She got smattered in our newspapers. She got subjected to the humiliation and discomfort of a sexual assault exam. She was forced to come back to Shreveport, a place she probably would have just as soon forgotten, to go through a trial for what? And, you know, what Caitlin's dad, Ron, wrote is heartbreaking. He just talks about the heartbreak that the family still suffers and how re-traumatizing it is for him to have to go through this parole process, because he does his best to put the entire ordeal behind him and not even think about Mr. Seaton. You know, Caitlin did grow up in a somewhat tumultuous environment, according to some of the family members. There was some conflict between her and her parents, but she wasn't a throwaway. She was a young girl with her entire life ahead of her. So I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna close. You know, I don't know if the board members read this, but in Mr. Seaton's own words, "That's nice. I could do something with that." That's what Mr. Seaton commented to a deputy at the Independence Bowl when a flashlight was shown on Caitlin during the altercation with her boyfriend and him being taken away by the police. And that's exactly what he did, that we have heard nothing about. This was a gross abuse of office, whether it was consensual or not consensual. This man was one of our highest city officials. He had a job to do at the Independence Bowl. But when he said he was going to do something with that, he meant it. And that was Caitlin Winstel, the barely 18-year-old intoxicated human being from another state who was here, unfamiliar with her surroundings, no one that she knew around. And that's what he did. He swooped her up like a hawk. I know we hear the word predator in our business a lot, but it's never been more fitting than in this instance. He went onto the bus. The 43-year-old family man went onto the bus. He chose his prey. He decided that he was going to get some of that one way or another, when everyone else was telling Caitlin to stay on the bus, to go back to the hotel, and then to try to get her boyfriend out of jail. The bus driver was telling her that. Other officers on the scene were telling her that. But Mr. Seaton very deliberately got on the bus. He let her think he was a police officer. And like a child molester lures children with, "Please help me find my puppy," he lured her with, "I can help you get your boyfriend out of jail." So what did Caitlin do? She got off the bus. She went with Mr. Seaton. He took her on a golf cart to his city vehicle. He took her to the city jail, and she tried to get away from him then. She told people inside the city jail she asked for a ride. She offered to pay the bondsman money to give her a ride to her hotel. She asked, "How do you report the police to the police?" And she even told somebody, "I think that man is going to rape me." Did she still go with Mr. Seaton? Yes, she did, because she was an 18-year and 18-day-old intoxicated teenager whose boyfriend was in jail. So they went to the to the government plaza. And that's where Mr. Seaton decided that he was going to be Mr. Big Bad city employee, and he was going to take her up to his office. He could have let her use two of the cell phones that he had. He could have taken her to numerous ATMs in the city of Shreveport, but he had to get her up to Government Plaza where they would be in a deserted area alone. And he could show her the view of the city, and he could woo her to the mayor's couch with, have you ever seen a real mayor's office? And when that didn't go as planned, because Caitlin wasn't interested and she resisted him, just like she did in the car at the city jail and like she did at the jail, she did the same thing again at Government Plaza. But he couldn't handle that. That couldn't be the case because he had handpicked her, and he couldn't not get his way with that he had already determined he was going to do something with.
Ms.
So
Cheryl,
Yes,
we kind of wrap it up, please, ma'am.
yes, sir. I'm
Thank you. We've got all these reports, and so it's important to hear what you have to say. We
Okay. So I just wanted to point out that she was left with a bleeding navel and lacerations to her vaginal area, which is not that common in sexual assaults. And the same nurse testified that they were not consistent with normal consensual sex. So that's what happened. That's what he did. That's what he meant to do. And his conviction and his sentence have been upheld. There's a lot of stuff in his paperwork about how he's still appealing, and he even alleges that something's pending at the Louisiana Supreme Court. That is, everything in his case has been upheld by the higher courts. So I would just like for the board to take all of that in mind, and the lack of remorse, as Ms. Schoolcraft mentioned, his lack of interest in his victim, and just please don't add more tragedy to tragedy by rewarding Mr. Seaton's behavior. I do appreciate the board's time and the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
thank you for all the work you put on the case and for all the work that you do up there. We appreciate you very much. Okay, that's all the in favor and all the opposition and all. It's time to turn it over to Ms. Stapleton because she's the primary. So what questions do you have?
Well, I'm reading the report, sir, that it says that you were highly intoxicated. And different people said that they smelled a lot of alcohol on your breath the night that all that happened. Is that true?
No, ma'am, I don't remember reading anything about that. And I was not intoxicated. I'd been working all day.
Okay, so you weren't intoxicated on the bus or anything.
No, ma'am.
What about the victim?
I wasn't aware.
Okay, Ms. Fitzgerald was talking about that she felt like the victim was intoxicated. Well, in the report that I'm reading here, it says the blood alcohol level on you was 0.10 to 0.116. And other people had smelled the alcohol on your breath. And then if the victim was highly had alcohol in her and highly intoxicated, well, then they can't give consent. And so, I mean, I know in cases that I've worked, if a victim is intoxicated and there is intercourse, it becomes rape that they get charged with. So I don't know what happened with that. I do know that the victim called her mom, and the mom received text messages from her daughter to the point that she ended up filing a missing persons report looking for her daughter because her daughter was upset. So I guess you're aware of that in all the police reports, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I listened to Leon talk about the medical examination, and I read that in the report, so no sense going over all of that. I really don't have any more questions because I think pretty much Leon covered it. And your children are wonderful boys, obviously. And then all the courses you take, I mean, all of that has been acknowledged, and your interstate compact. So I really don't have any more questions to ask.
Okay.
I just got, more of a state question, being in public service, we've all been in public service. I mean, we're all victims because now we can't get people to trust us. It's hard enough to get the general public to trust us, yet you totally broke that trust with this girl. I mean, was she making moves on you? Why did you take her there? I mean, there was no reason to take her there.
The question, what was your question, Mr. Freeman?
Why would you take her to the mayor's office? What was your intent?
Well, first I took her to city jail because she had asked me for a ride and on the bus that they referred to earlier in that video. She asked me for a ride and to the city jail, and nobody else would take her to the city jail. And so that's the first place we went, and I let her go inside by herself, and she talked with officers in there. And
why wouldn't you go in there and help her if she's from another city and you're a public servant? Why didn't you go in the police station?
She asked to go in by herself.
Okay.
And I wait, and she begged. She wanted me to wait for her, so I mean, I waited in the car.
Okay. I have no further questions.
I'm usually, Rick, when somebody comes before us, the first thing they talk about it, and quite often they're very emotional about it, about the harm that they have caused the victim.
Yes.
I've not heard anything about the victim except from the victim's mom and the DA's representative, victim person in the DA's office. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I'm sorry for her loss, Ms. Barnes or Ms. Schoolcraft's loss. I mean, I wish that her daughter was still here. I'm sorry about that.
What about the sexual assault?
Some of the statements that were made aren't backed up by what was in the court case. You referred to the SANE examination. The nurse there said that it did not back up forced sex, that it only referred to recent sexual activity. So some of there were misstatements there. As far as alcohol, I've never seen anything about me being intoxicated. And I didn't have any awareness that she was intoxicated. You look at videos and she's walking just fine, and typing on her telephone. Another comment there was about the telephone, and she had 2 cell phones on her the entire time and a pocket knife, and testified that she used the restroom behind a deadbolt lock. And it was never brought up that she claimed rape before we had sex. And I just.
Okay, now, one thing I noticed that you kind of mischaracterized the sexual assault exam from what I read. I read there was vaginal tearing as normal or as usual in a sexual assault. Now, did I misread something? That sounds pretty, I didn't just dream that up. That sounds contrary to what you just said.
In the follow-up that the attorney did from that, he said, does that mean that it's forced sex or sexual assault? And the same nurse examiner said no. So what does it indicate? It only indicates recent sexual activity. And she had said that she had had sex twice that day.
Okay, well,
I agree that we had sex. I mean.
Okay, the vaginal tearing is not, I'm not gonna get into the court or the scientific or anything, but that seemed a little strange. That I'm reading one thing about vaginal tearing, but back to the other, Rick, all you've said is you're sorry that the victim died. Even in recent cases where you have in national media about somebody that has done something or been accused of something, they at least apologize for the perception. I'm sorry that this young lady thought that this wasn't consensual. I'm sorry that she might have gotten that impression, but it was consent. I'm sorry that she went through this. I'm sorry that, but there's never been any mention about your remorse for that. Am I mistaken? I mean,
No,
where is that?
Like I said, I do apologize that there was any of that negative perception. I did make mistakes that night. There's no doubt about that. I committed adultery, and that was wrong. I had sex in the workplace, and that was wrong. I was out messing around, and I should have been at home with my family, and that was wrong. So I definitely made mistakes that evening.
Okay. Thank you. Y'all ready to vote?
Yeah, I do have to correct one thing. I'm sorry. It does say here, the bench trial of Richard Seaton was that KW's blood level was likely between 0.10 and 0.16 grams percent at the time of the sexual assault between 8 and 9 p.m. And so like there again, when we have a victim who is highly intoxicated, a lot of times that's dealt with as a rape because they can't give consent. So I did see that. So I did want to correct that though. And nothing else.
Okay. No questions? We're ready to vote. Ms. Stapleton, you lead the charge.
Okay. My vote today is to deny based upon the abuse of power, just like you were charged, and I believe it was forcible rape.
My vote is also to deny. You've done great in prison, but bottom line, you got a big break with a 15-year sentence. It really disturbs me that you used a position of power to get what you wanted from this young lady, and due to victim opposition and law enforcement opposition, my vote is to deny. Okay, my vote also, it doesn't matter because it needs to be unanimous, so your parole is denied. My vote, Rick, is to deny also. When you have another hearing, if you choose to get one, I think you got to somehow acknowledge what this little girl went through. This hearing's over, denied.
You know what's remarkable to me with this hearing, and I really think the board members just hit the nail on the head, ending with Mr. Praters, the sheriff, with his mic drop, is that you got to remember what you did to this little girl. She had just turned 18 years old. She's in a different state with her boyfriend. He gets arrested, and then you take her to a place to do this. Whatever you even believe is the truth, the idea that all these years later, after she's passed away at the young age of 21, and her mother is there, you can't have the humility to have said what the parole board told them to have said. You know, you could have said, I am destroyed that I did that to her. You know, if he didn't want to admit guilt, he could have still shown empathy. He could have still shown empathy to the mother who's sitting there. He could have still, but there was nothing there. It was the same thing that he said at sentencing. It's the same thing that he said in the opening statement. It's the same. He believes that he's the victim. He believes that she is the one that caused him to be in the place that he is in. And that's simply not the case. And, you know, his sons, I thought that they left the most authentic, well said, supporting messages. Definitely in the top of the list compared to what we're used to seeing with turtles and butterflies and whatever. And hey, at least he managed, or his wife managed, to raise good sons. You know, couldn't he have taken this opportunity to show them? There could have been something, but no. He's still too prideful. He's still too egotistical, or his mother said narcissistic, to, even when it's in his best interest, because all he had to do was show something more than he showed, and he just couldn't. She's no longer in this world. Her mother, it boggles the mind. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll read, and Richard found a lot of information. Now, I'll read the appeals to you. I'll read the side that supports him. And there is a lot of mitigating, I wouldn't say mitigating factors, but there's a lot in there that makes it a messy case. But nothing changes the fact that here is a man in high political office and power that after her boyfriend gets arrested in front of him, he takes advantage. And all he can say is, what I did wrong was have sex in the mayor's office. What I did wrong was commit adultery. And I would say, like, that's just nuts. Anyways, let's jump in to this. And, you know, Richard found a picture of her car accident, and it was just brutal. Her car's flipped over, and it's just, but let's go to the facts of the case. Now, I think what I'll do first is I'll read to you. This is written from his supporters. So we'll go over what his supporters said, who they claim that he's still innocent. And then we'll go over his appeal. So it's freeseaton.com. Now, this was, by the looks of it with this thing, this was probably made, you know, at the time of his sentencing. And this was written when he was still in the middle of his appeals. So here's what they list as the facts of him being innocent. So they say KW had which is the victim, 2 cell phones with her that evening. It's true. She had her boyfriend's cell phone because they gave it to her after they arrested him. KW never tried to call 911. KW had a pocket knife with her that evening, probably her boyfriend's. KW testified that she used 2 different bathrooms at the government plaza, each equipped with a deadlock bolt. KW had no bruises, marks, or any evidence of force. There was no indication of force, only recent activity, who also testified that she had sex with her boyfriend that day. There was no evidence of blood on condom or on scene. There was no evidence of force or trauma. KW testified that she called the jail to get the bond amount. This call was made after sex, after going outside to the ATM. This means that she spoke to a Shreveport police officer from Rick's office after sex. KW admitted the text alleging sexual assault where he sent before she had sex. So this was something that's in the statement where she went into the bathroom and texted her boyfriend that he had done that to her before they had done anything. Louisiana Second Circuit Court of Appeals acknowledged that there was no physical evidence that contradicted the testimony of Mr. Seaton. Louisiana Supreme Court Justice Scott Christian stated that the victim's statements here contain numerous inconsistencies and unusual features that were not explored through cross-examination. There is a personal email from someone who worked for the Cato DA's office that acknowledged that Rick got a raw deal and was poorly represented legally. This email also stated, I suspect Marty Stroud had a stroke and wasn't all there. That's his attorney. Years after the trial, Rick discovered that his trial attorney, Marty Stroud, suffered a stroke before the trial that made it, and I don't know if what they're stating is true, by the way. The federal district court acknowledged that the Cato DA's office withheld evidence several years after the trial. Rick was finally able to get recording of the 911 call where KW's mother stated that she was not sure if she believed the allegations, and twice referred to her daughter as a drama queen. Now he lost his appeals, of course. Now we're going to go through the facts of the case, and as you can see, it's 21 pages long. So I don't think we're going to go through all of it, but I also think that we're going to go through more than we normally do. So if you don't want to hear it, of course, you can skip off. So for those of you who leave comments, wow, I really like these parole hearings, but I just hate man-dudes whining or complaining or unpacking. I say to you, sir or ma'am, why do you listen? I do it at the end. Really? Anyways, that's enough. So on December 27, 2010, KW, an 18-year-old high school senior. So think about this. She's in high school and she just turned 18. and he doesn't take fault all these years later when she's passed away and her mother is there. Think about that. At Independence Bowl, held in Shreveport with her mother, Kimberly Barnes, her boyfriend, David Barnes, and her grandparents. They were Florida residents who were staying at the Sam Towns Hotel. The evidence contained in the record established the following events. KW, probably, I don't need this, consumed a 2 16-ounce cup of Jack Daniels and soda before the game and 2 beers during the game. After the disagreement with the person sitting behind them, KW and Barnhill left the stadium and began arguing with each other. Several officers saw the commotion and asked if KW was all right. A short time later, the officers arrested KW's boyfriend after he refused to follow instructions. If you can imagine, all this started from some stupid arrest. You know, it's like, really? Did he really have to arrest him? Also, keep in mind, for those of you who are skeptical, he was convicted. He was convicted in 2014. This is way before the Me Too movement. So for this, you think, officials getting convicted in Louisiana in 2014 by a judge panel. It wasn't a jury trial. So KW pleaded with the police not to arrest her boyfriend, but the police stated that he would be taken to the Shreveport City Jail and gave KW his cell phone. That's why she had 2 phones. Corporal Ernst French, an employee of the Cato Parish Sheriff's Office, was working that evening outside the stadium. He testified that KW was a short female with dark hair, a small frame, and had a strong odor of alcohol on her breath. Corporal French testified that he saw the defendant at the scene helping with the shuttle buses. French stated that the defendant, was a tall and wore a dark French coat. Corporal French testified that after the arrest, KW's boyfriend, the defendant, touched French's shoulder and stated, "I can do something with that. She's cute." This is our prince over here who's sitting in prison. Said after the arrest of KW's boyfriend, the defendant, right, touched her and said, "I could do something. She's cute. I'll take her on." This is what they brought this up in the parole hearing. Corporal French did not ask who the defendant was referring to, but KW was standing nearby. Shreveport Police Sergeant Keith Grant was supervising shuttle routes at the bowl game. Sergeant Grant testified that he was aware the defendant was the city's contact person with authority regarding the operation of the shuttle routes. Sergeant Grant spoke with KW after her boyfriend's arrest. He described her as a young woman who appeared to be 18 years of age, with a petite build and approximately height of 5 feet and weight of 115 pounds. And I think the drinking age in Louisiana at the time was 18, by the way. Sergeant Grant stated that she was upset and wanted to go to jail to get her boyfriend released. Sergeant Grant attempted to help KW by advising her to ride the shuttle bus back to Sam's Town. He also explained the booking process to her, but testified that she did not understand the process and kept repeating his words out loud to herself. So he's trying to explain to her the booking process, and she's just not understanding it. And all she wants to do is get her boyfriend. So I just did a quick Google search. I'm not sure if the drinking age was different back then, but it says that Louisiana allows drinking age of 8 if you're under 21 if your parents are present, which is quite interesting. Okay, so Sergeant Grant testified that he told the defendant that KW needed a ride and that the defendant stated that he could get her back to Samstown once KW was seated on the shuttle. Sergeant Grant was under the impression she was returning to the hotel and he walked back to his assignment area. However, a short time later, Sergeant Grant saw the defendant driving KW away in a golf cart and was surprised because he thought she was going back to her hotel. Can you imagine, again, you're a government official, a married man, a father, and you know that, and you just saw her boyfriend get her, and this is what you're gonna do? Like, you're gonna put it all on the line, and you claim you're sober? Charles McDuff, an operator of one of the shuttle buses, testified that the defendant coordinated and supervised the shuttle buses. McDuff testified that at some point during the evening, he saw that KW was hollering and screaming, that he could smell alcohol on her, and that he believed she had been drinking based on her actions. McDuff testified that overhead, KW referred to the defendant as Officer Rick, and the defendant said he was not an officer, but was an administrative officer for the city. However, when McDuff interjected to tell KW that the defendant was not an officer, the defendant then responded, "Technically, I am." McDuff stated that after KW was seated on the bus, she again asked about going to the jail, and the defendant stepped into the bus and asked KW if she was going on the bus or with him. KW then exited the bus, and left with the defendant. The defendant, it's like, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but it's like, this is like reminiscent of a scene like when you're a college age and the bar closes and it's like 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. and there's that guy that's like trying to get the drunk girl to go home with them, except this is at a football game. You're a government official, you're like 50 something and she just turned 18, and it's like, what is he doing? Like, in what case? This is not a consensual thing. This is anyways, the defendant drove to KW in the golf cart, a city-owned vehicle that he was using for the evening. KW testified that the defendant placed his hand on her leg while driving her to the city jail. Then when they arrived at the jail, she attempted to get out of the car. The defendant pulled her back inside the car and started kissing her neck. She also stated that she asked the defendant to stop during these acts and that she felt uncomfortable. Jonathan Long, an employee of the Louisiana Bail Bonds, testified that he spoke with KW at the jail and informed her that his company did not post bond for out-of-state residents. He testified that KW began to cry and told him that the detective who brought her there had been touching her inappropriately, rubbing on her, kissing her, and she had told him to stop. Long testified that KW offered him money for a ride, but that he could see she was upset, she was crying, and he could smell the alcohol on her breath. So he did not give her a ride because of her condition. Long testified that when he walked out to the parking lot, the defendant asked him if he had been able to help KW, and Long told the defendant that he was unable to help her. So it seems that she offered him money to give a ride, and he didn't. He's like, I'm just not getting involved in this. But surveillance footage from the waiting room of the jailhouse, defendant entered the building after being buzzed in, standing over KW and motioning for her to leave with him. The defendant is also seen taking the list of local bail bond companies and walking towards the door. KW testified that she was crying and upset, that she told the defendant that she needed to use a phone and go to the ATM, and the defendant stated that they were going to his office to use the phone and ATM nearby. She stated that the defendant never told her that he was carrying a cell phone with him at the time. After arriving at the parking of the garage at the Government Plaza, the defendant used his access card to enter the building and the mayor's office suite secured area of the second floor. KW testified that she knew she was in the defendant's office because of the plaque of his door and the name in front of his seat. According to KW, the defendant started rubbing her back again and feeling underneath the layers of her clothes. KW testified that she asked the defendant to stop, but that he grabbed her and pulled her onto his lap and began to feel her stomach. She testified that she attempted to move away, but the defendant held her down. During these acts, KW testified that she told him to stop. The defendant then asked KW if she had ever seen the mayor's office. KW testified that she wanted to go to the mayor's office because she was hoping that more people would be around and that there would be a video camera present to prevent the defendant from touching her. He used a card to enter the mayor's office, which was secure by an electric security system that required a key card to gain access. Upon entry, KW saw a bowl of lollipops and placed one in her pocket. She testified that the defendant made sexual comments referring to the lollipop. KW testified that she asked to use a bathroom. She had been seen in the hallway of the second floor, but the defendant told her to use the bathroom in the mayor's office. While in the bathroom, the mayor's office, KW sent the following text to her boyfriend: "Tell the police that Officer John sexual assault me. Please, I'll do anything for you, but I can't hit this man no more." So this is a text message that she sent her boyfriend while she is in the bathroom now in the mayor's office. KW testified that she had forgotten she had her boyfriend's phone, which began to ring because she had his phone. KW then began to flush the toilet to drown out the ringing sound. So she's this 18-year-old, very drunk girl who now finds herself in a bathroom in the early mornings in the mayor's office with a man who she's probably at this stage not sure who he is. I think she thinks he's a detective, and she seems to be afraid. She also sent her mother the following text: "Mom, my phone died. I'm at mayor office downtown. Help." And Mom, his name is Rick Seston. KW testified that she sent those texts because she was afraid that she would be assaulted and killed. KW testified that as she exited the bathroom, the defendant grabbed her, pushed her against the wall, and began to kiss her neck. She stated that she told him to stop, but that she was unable to fight him off. The defendant then pushed her onto the couch in the mayor's office and began undressing her. She testified that her belly button ring was caught in her pants and was ripped out, and the defendant pulled her pants down. KW testified that she told the defendant that she was on her cycle, but he pulled out the tampon and performed. I'll put the link in the description. She says she smelled the latex glove, which she assumed was a condom. He said that that's when he completed the act. KW testified that she was visibly upset afterwards. She then followed the defendant to the ATM outside the building. They returned to the mayor's office to try to find her underwear, and then defendant drove her to Sam's Town. KW testified that she had memorized the car's license plate while in the parking garage. After being dropped off, she immediately went to the bar in the casino with a pen to write down the number. Of course, they would use this as, how is it that she was so drunk? She memorized the number, I mean, you know. KW was met in the hotel lobby by her mother and police officers. Her mother had received a text and filed a missing person report. So they claim that the evidence was that her mother said, "Oh, she's probably drunk." But good on her mother. Her mother's immediately there, files a missing persons report, and had the police come. So the police came immediately. Shreveport police officer Matthew Holloway testified that KW was crying and told him the defendant assaulted her in the office. She also handed him a piece of paper containing the license plate number and description of this vehicle used by the defendant. Or also at this point, it was much later, so she could have sobered up too. Officer Tracy Mendels, an investigator of the Shreveport Police Department Crime Scene Investigative Unit, was called to the government plaza and advised to look for the belly button ring. Mendels photographed, marked, and collected evidence at the office. The following evidence was secured from the office: 2 DNA swabs from the couch cushion, 1 tape lift of long dark hair from the couch cushion, and 1 throw pillow from the couch, which was suspected bodily fluids. The following evidence was secured in the home of the defender's father, with whom the defendant was staying: a blue shirt and charcoal gray pants, a tube of lubricant, 2 manuals, and a number of condoms. KW's belly button ring, underwear, and tampon was never recovered. Now, this is what they were talking about. The medical examiner revealed that KW had 4 slits or lacerations at the bottom of posterior Hubbard stated that the slits were different from the norm and indicated rough intercourse, which could have occurred with or without consent. So I think, what was that? Was that Mr. Pete Freeman that was referring to that? So that was open for interpretation. Okay, I mean, I again, there's more to read through this, and I'll put the link in the description. But I'm with Miss Stapleton in this scenario. You know, you can't. I just don't believe him, and I believe her, and I don't know what his situation is, that even when his freedom's on the line, he still can't admit it. Is it ego? Is it because he actually believes it? Who knows? But you know, it seems that the culture and that office was quite bad at the time. There was a civil lawsuit that was filed against the state. She did file a civil lawsuit because, and in the civil lawsuit, it claims that the city was at fault because they knew of the reputation of kind of like, in so many words, of the different sexual misconducts, but it was denied, that appeal. But I think, again, let's just come down to the fact that this really just girl, and I go say child, she has just turned 18, how this completely derailed her life. We can go over real quick her memorial. So born in Jacksonville in 92, she was a daughter. She made many long life friends while attending the children's school in Georgia. She graduated from Fletcher High School in 2011 and was currently attending Florida State College at Jacksonville, where she earned a designation in the college president list for academic achievements. So she was on her way to doing well. She was a Girl Scout Silver Award recipient, received the U.S. President's Education Award for Outstanding Academic Excellence, and was accepted into Duke University Talent Identification Program. In a short 21 years, she was full of life and had kind, generous, loving, and forgiving spirit. She worked hard and played hard and was a loyal, trusted friend. Shortly after receiving Christ Jesus as her Savior, the Lord took our precious angel up to heaven to watch over everyone she loved so dearly. And this man, who really had, if anything, to set the example to his sons, I could just had nothing there. There was no empathy, nothing in his mind. He's somehow the victim, which is completely insane, because even if he wanted to believe what the judge did not believe, he still should be begging for forgiveness, because what he did was wrong on every level. And with that, I'll let you go.
But it floors me, and it really hurts my heart that in his opening remarks, all he's done is talking about himself. He sounds like a narcissist. Yes, he's done all these programs in prison to make himself look good and has been leading and training. All of those things I'd like to see him humble himself and clean the toilets and be a janitor and not say how good he is.
Rick, all you've said is you're sorry that the victim died. Even in recent cases where you have in national media about somebody that has done something or been accused of something, they at least apologize for the perception. I'm sorry that this young lady thought that this wasn't consensual. I'm sorry that she might have gotten that impression, but it was consent. I'm sorry that she went through this. I'm sorry that, but there's never been any mention about your remorse for that.